जिंदा खुदा से दिल जो लगाते तो खूब था।
जिंदा खुदा से दिल जो लगाते तो खूब था।
मुर्दा बुतों से जान, मुर्दा बुतों से जान छुड़ाते तो खूब था।
Okay, so can I please request Shaway Secunda for Tilawat, please?
Assalamualaikum. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. سبحان الذي أسرى بعبده ليلا من المسجد الحرام إلى المسجد الأقصى الذي باركنا حوله لنريه من آياتنا إنه هو السميع البصير. In the name of Allah, the Gracious, the Merciful. Glory be to Him who carried His servant by night from the sacred mosque to the distant mosque, the environs of which we have blessed, that we might show Him some of our signs. Surely He alone is the hearing, the seeing. Jazakumullah.
Jazakumullah jaza. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Amma ba'du fa'uzu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Right, today we're going to talk about the miracles of the prophets of Allah, and afterwards we'll open it up for any comments, any questions, or you can send a chat as you wish, inshallah. Right, so before we start on the subject, it's important that we first look into what is a miracle. So we know that Allah has created everything and established the laws of nature. What goes up must come down, etc. So a miracle which is shown by a prophet of Allah does not mean that God has gone against his own laws. Of course, that can never happen. A miracle does not mean that God makes a law and then he breaks it. But we are limited in our own understanding. We do not understand many of the laws which Allah has created. So, of course, we understand certain things, and mashallah, over the years, we've learnt much more, but we don't know everything. So Allah has created everything, and whenever you create something, you know how that thing works. So what seems to us to be something which is against nature does not necessarily mean. It just means that we are limited in our knowledge. We don't fully understand that. So any miracle that has been performed by a prophet of Allah will not break the laws of nature. As I said, Allah is the creator, and only He knows about His creation. So He manifests His signs to prove the truth of His prophets. This has always been the way. And yes, it will seem like a miracle, and it is a miracle because it is something different to what we normally experience. But as I said, it is still within the laws of nature. And this is something which we need to understand, that we are limited. We only understand certain things. And of course, as we progress, we understand more things. For instance, if you talked about people flying or going into space in the time of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, they would say this will be a miracle. How is it? It's impossible. How can people go up into space? But nowadays, of course, we understand that this is not a miracle. This can happen. So this is a thing that we need to understand, that as we understand things more and more and more, it becomes more clearer. But just because something has happened which we don't understand will not go against the laws that Allah has created. This is a very important thing that we need to understand. Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad alayhi salam, the promised Messiah, speaking on the same subject, has mentioned that laws actually have many tiers. He has said that some laws are known to man, and some others have overriding laws which exist, but they're unknown to man. A miracle appears to be a miracle to an ordinary person when he knows only the superficial laws known to people of his time, but he does not know the other set of overriding laws which exist as laws without breaking the other set of laws. So I hope this is clear that obviously it's got to keep within the laws that others created, but it may seem to go against them in our limited knowledge. Again, the fourth Khalifa, Hazrat Mirza Tahir Ahmad Rahimahullah, he has said about this that a miracle is this, that there is an unseen hand of power, unseen by the people, which is on the side of the weak. And because that hidden hand of power is the strongest, despite the fact that the law is not broken, the weak appear to win. This always happens without fail every time when a prophet of God is sent. So he explains that the true miracle is therefore the victory of the weak over the powerful. So, of course, when we look at the prophets of Allah, they're normal men, they're weak like everyone else, but Allah's help is there. And it's when Allah manifests his help that whatever their position is of weakness, they will come out triumphant. That is the real miracle. So Hazrat Mirza Tahir Ahmad alayhi salam has continued to say that the fact is that the powerful hand of God remains unseen. But the weak ones win not because they're weak, and still they win. They win because the hand of God is with them. So this is what we've seen when we look into the history of the prophets, especially, of course, and we see that these miracles are there. It overturns. That's the main thing. That it's Allah guiding them as to what to do, when to do. And that's the real miracle, that Allah is helping them, which we can't see. And this is a wonderful thing with the certainly prophets, even the caliphs of today, that Allah is constantly guiding them. We can't see that, but we can see the result of that, which then becomes the real miracle. So, like I say, prophets in the past have produced miracles so that bewildered and wayward men may be led from the chaotic state to a state of firm faith in God. Allah has supported all of his prophets with miracles. It is one of the signs of prophets. So this is how we understand what miracles are. Now let's have a look at some of these miracles. For instance, the miracle of Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam. So one miracle was how Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam was saved from the fire. So it's related of how he turned against his people, he destroyed their idols, and in return they burnt him by the fire. But somehow Allah saved him. So Holy Quran states, "We said, God says, O fire, be thou a means of coolness and safety for Abraham." Chapter 21, verse 70. Now, of course, we don't know what happened. My guess is, and it's just a guess, a possibility, that when we look at a flame, you see a flame here, you see there's different parts of the flame. You've got the blue, you've got the red, and you've got the yellow. And as you can see from the diagram, it's different heats. Now, the blue one, generally that's the coolest one. So maybe, it's one guess, maybe that blue flame to overcome Abraham and save Abraham in that way. Maybe. Maybe it rained. Maybe the wind blew out. It's not clear from the Holy Quran what happened, but we know that this was a miracle in the sense that somehow Abraham was put in the fire, and of course Abraham was saved. And this would have had effect on the people, that how this person who's meant to die has survived. So this is how we see Allah working. Again, we see with the miracle of Hazrat Moses, alayhi salam. And there's many, of course, that he showed, but one here that I'm moving to is the parting of the waves of the Red Sea. It's a very famous one, of course, and it allowed the Israelites to escape the clutches of Pharaoh. And of course, as Pharaoh and his people tried to go across, they eventually got drowned. Now, it's often depicted like the picture that the waves parted, they were allowed to go across. Who knows? I wasn't there. I don't know what happened. But we see in the Holy Quran, and remember the time when we divided the sea for you and saved you and drowned Pharaoh's people while you looked on. Chapter 2, verse 21. Now, there was an interesting thing here where the fourth Caliph Rahimahullah was once asked about this. And he mentioned something which I looked up and I totally agree with, because the Holy Quran talks about how the Israelites looked on. They were on the safety of one bank and they saw this happening. Now, if you look at the Red Sea, which we often believe this happened, the nearest point of distance between one bank and the other bank is about 2 miles. And so that seems too far to look on. But generally, what the fourth Caliph has said, I'm just going off the point here because I like this point, is that there was a delta of the River Nile. And the Israelites were building a pyramid in one of the places and crossed the actual delta of the River Nile and not the Red Sea. And so this happened at the delta. That would have been still affected by the rising of the sea and going back. And this is what we happened, that instead of this mighty parting of the waves as is depicted, more than likely, Moses was told where to go, and he struck his rod at that same time when the sea itself was receding. And that allowed a path to materialize for them to cross. So not all the water would have disappeared, but they would have been able to go across. Now, of course, when the Egyptians came, they came with their heavy chariots, and that would have got stuck in this wet mud and so on and so forth. And when the sea came back in, the tide came back in, they could have drowned. So, like I say, Allah knows best what really happened. Now, up here where I am, we have a place called, well, it used to be called Linden's Farm. It's now called Holy Island. And I often take people there. I took Imam Saad there because what happens there is that when the tide is out, as you can see, they've got a road which goes directly to the island. And so you can cross when the tide is out. But when the tide comes in, that road disappears. And if you mistime it, you're going to get stuck in it. And people have been in serious problems because of this. So a lot of water comes in, the road completely disappears. So this is an example. This is what I was showing you, Imam Saab, example of what could have happened with Hazrat Moses, that when the tide goes out, then a path opens up the way. And when the tide comes in, you lose that way. Interestingly enough, the same thing, some people, because they've got businesses on the island, they want to go across quickly. And so they don't wait and for the tide to disappear. They start crossing when it is just receding. And so I use this one to show walking on water, or in this case, cars walking on water. So again, showing that particular miracle. But of course, again, you've got to be very careful. If you've got the wrong type of vehicle, again, water can come in, or you can get stuck if you don't know where the path is. But these people are traders, they know the path, and that's why they do it, but it's not advised that anyone else should follow their example. Now, coming on to the miracle of Hazrat Isa, alayhi salam, again, there are many miracles. The Holy Quran states, I come to you with a sign from your Lord, which is that I will fashion out of you a creation out of clay, after the manner of a bird. Then I will breathe into it a new spirit, and it will become a soaring being by the command of Allah. And I will heal the night blind and the leprosy, and I will quicken the dead by the command of Allah. This is taken from chapter 3, verse 50. So there's a few things that's being mentioned here. But how to understand this? Of course, if you take it literally, it means that Jesus created things out of clay, gave life to those things out of clay. He helped people who was blind to see. He removed leprosy, and of course, he brought the living to dead. If you take it literally. But what we understand is, to me, is that Jesus raised people from the low self to the high spiritual self. So it wasn't literally created things out of clay, but he's developing them and helping them to become righteous people. Now, of course, all prophets are healers. I was just talking today in my ATFOL class about the first Caliph and how he was known for being a healer, medicine and things like that. But the prophets, they had this skill, and it's renowned that many prophets are healers because they're healing through Allah. And with the help of Allah, of course, they can heal many people. But this is especially referring to the people to whom the Israelites felt were, as they term, unclean. And that meant that they had no social contact with them at all. But we know that Jesus did meet them. And even the prostitutes and things like that, he freely met them. So this was what Jesus did. And again, all prophets are the same, that they will go to the poor, the needy, the people who are shunned by society. They don't mind. Likewise, all prophets give spiritual eyes to those that are spiritually blind, and give spiritual life to those that are spiritual dead. So this is how we understand it. That it's not literally that he is doing these things, but he is transforming these people to become faithful believers in God. So they show the signs of God, but this is not from themselves. And this is again something which we need to understand, that they always say that it's God doing the work. They're not the people who are healing people or anything like this. They are doing the work because God is helping them. Right, so now let's turn to the miracles of the Holy Prophet Muhammad. Now, the Ghanandis will often mention quite a few. I'm going to go through some of these miracles, not all of them, but these are some of the miracles as such. So, of course, we say that the greatest miracle that the Holy Prophet Muhammad showed was, in fact, the Holy Quran, the Word of God. And every single part of that was a Word of God, and it's protected so that even today we still have it as it was when it was revealed. That's the greatest miracle. The Holy Quran states, say, if men and jinn were gathered together to produce the like of this Quran, they would not produce the like thereof, even though they should help one another. Chapter 17, verse 89. So this shows again that man can't produce the like of this. So it's a miracle in a sense that it's come directly from God. So this, we say, is the greatest miracle that the Holy Prophet showed. And alhamdulillah, we are seeing this miracle all the time. Now, as was recited today in the opening verses, glory be to him who carried his servant by night from the sacred mosque to the distant mosque, chapter 17, verse 2. Now, of course, Ghanandis go on to say that the Isra also happened where he went into heaven. The miracle here is that obviously, how did he go to Jerusalem and describe it perfectly? We believe, of course, it was a vision, and this is supported naturally by the Holy Quran, by Hadith. But Ghanandis actually believe it really happened. But the main thing was, again, that how Allah helped him to see everything. He was able to describe everything beautifully, even though he's never been to Jerusalem. So this, again, is a miracle in the sense that Allah creates these visions and helps people to see things which they don't know about. Again, another one which is often related is the splitting of the moon. So they say that they demanded a sign from the Holy Prophet Muhammad and the moon split. Now, again, we have to understand, okay, first it's got here, the Holy Quran states, the hour has drawn near and the moon is rent asunder. Chapter 54, verse 2 is also mentioned, of course, in the Hadith. Now, we have to understand that these sort of things are visions. A vision, a waking vision, what we call kashif, can be seen by one person, it can be seen by many people. In this case, it seems as if it was a vision where many people saw the splitting of the moon. Some people say it was an eclipse. Maybe so. Maybe again, the Holy Prophet was told at that particular time, just like the parting of the sea and things like that, that an eclipse would happen. Maybe it was the clouds or something like this, or it could be representing the breaking of political power, because this is what the moon symbolizes, political power, and a split of it shows again that it's going to break the political power and the Holy Prophet is going to become successful. What we do know, of course, is that man's been to the moon and they didn't see a split anywhere there. We have huge telescopes which can see the moon very clearly. They don't see any splits. So we don't believe, again, that it truly happened, but no doubt it was seen, a vision or whatever. Again, there's the incident of the when the Holy Prophet and Abu Bakr left Mecca to Medina. They stayed at the cave Thor, and the spider built a web, bird built a nest and laid eggs. There were snakes inside and things like this. Now, again, this is an example of how Allah protects his servants. It would have been very easy, in fact, if the people that came to that cave just looked a little bit and saw inside the cave, they would have seen the Holy Prophet. But how Allah protects them and puts that doubt in the people's mind that they didn't even bother to look into the cave. They just saw these signs of a bird's nest or a spider's web, knowing snakes was in there, and dismissed the whole thing as fantasy. So again, like I say, this is also a miracle that how Allah protects. Now, with the Prophet Messiah, salam, the problem we have these days, and this is why when people ask me, is that we have this technology these days, a TV and other things, that even if you saw a person coming down from the skies with two angels on each side and they went to the top of a white minaret, we still would not believe. Why not? Because TV, magicians, and all these trickeries and things like that, we will still doubt it. So this is the problem when we say that this day and age, who is going to believe in miracles when there's so much science and things like this which tries to show trickery and things like that. But anyway, of course, people still demand what are the miracles of Hazrat Ahmad alayhi salam. So one of the things, of course, was Abdul Karim. Now, Abdul Karim contracted rabies, and in those days, there was no cure for rabies. There was no antibiotics like we have these days. And so the doctors gave up, and Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad alayhi salam prayed for that person, and he was cured. So again, this shows how Allah supports his prophets, helps his prophets, but of course it's Allah who cured him. We're not saying that Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad did it by himself, although of course he was a physician like all the prophets. Again, another miracle was that he learned 40,000 Arabic root words. And so he did this in one night, and he was able to do speeches in Arabic and understand the Arabic language. Again, it's Allah who is teaching him, helping him, of course, but this is still a miracle to show how Allah works. Normally, the main thing we talk about is the eclipse. So this is not a miracle. Of course, eclipse happens all the time, but it's fulfillment of the hadith of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, and so it's a great sign from Allah. So with the eclipse, of course, there were conditions. One of those conditions had to be that there must be a claimant. Someone had to claim to be the Mahdi. Without that, of course, it made no difference. And then there were going to be two eclipses, and they both happened in the same month of Ramadan. The first eclipse would happen on the first day of the 3 days of the full moon, because that's when the eclipse would happen. And the second eclipse would happen on the second day of the 3 days of the full moon. This, according to the hadith, never happened before, and it will never happen again. And of course, we've got records going all the way back, and we find that this never happened before. But, alhamdulillah, For Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, it happened in the east and then it happened in the west. Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad alayhi salam has said, the first category of miracles are those of an academic nature, such as the splitting of the moon, etc. The second are those that relate to divine verities and insights. And the third category of miracles is that it relates to morality. So here is explained these three types of miracles that are performed by the prophets. Okay, so now we're opening up for yourselves. That any questions or any comments, anything you would like to ask? As I said, you can speak or you can send a chat as you wish. So the ball's now in your court. So anybody got anything they would like to say?
Rabbi Sab, there's a question on the chat, if I may read, if that's okay.
Please, yes.
So the question is, there's always prophecies of the future. There's a prophecy of the times of coronavirus time, as the whole world is in difficult times.
Is there prophecy?
Yeah, sorry, was there a prophecy of the times of coronavirus as the whole world is in difficult times?
Yes. A famous prophecy, of course, found in the Bible, talking about the latter days, the days that we're in now, that nation will rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom, world wars. We've already seen 2 world wars happening this last century, and Hazur's telling us maybe it might be a 3rd world war. Then there will be earthquakes all around the world, and earthquakes are happening everywhere, even in the UK. But this bit, there will be pestilence, there will be diseases all around the world. And this is what we're seeing, a global disease like what we're seeing today. So these are the signs that we're seeing of the latter days when the promised Messiah had to come. Very clear signs. And of course, we've been seeing them over and over again. Now, these things happen. Of course, they happen. They've always happened. Wars happened, earthquakes have happened, diseases happened. But globally, that's the thing. And of course, with this particular one, we've seen that everywhere around the world, everyone has been affected by it. And because of modern technology, we're getting to hear about it. And because of the transport, that's also spreading it. And so now we're getting different variants to it as well, coming from different countries and so on and so forth. So yes, this is a sign of the latter days and why Allah sent the promised Messiah. People should think about this, and this is why Azur is constantly telling us that people need to think about this, need to turn to God, because this is a punishment from God in a way. Okay, anything else? Anybody got anything? You can raise your hand or G, Z.
No, there was that's all for from the chat side. If anyone would like to ask any questions, please feel free to unmute yourself.
Assalamu alaikum, Murabi Sahab.
Wa alaikum assalam. G.
Murabi Sahab, just linking back to the last question, if Allah wants us to come closer to Him, then why is it that such events, such events like earthquakes and diseases and viruses like corona, they arise, although it's a sign of the coming of the Messiah, then why is it that such cases they still occur?
Okay.
I think you sort of mentioned it in the last question, but it just came to my mind.
Okay, what we need to understand is that these are natural disasters. Allah hasn't sent this coronavirus down to destroy people. What it is that Allah's protection is there. Now, sometimes Allah removes his protection. If a person is moving away from God, so the further he goes away from God, he comes out of that protection. Once he comes out of that protection, he's open to the natural forces that are around. Now, of course, Allah has sent his prophet to us in this day and age to bring mankind back to God. But instead of coming back to God, mankind has gone further and further away from God. As they've gone further and further away from God, Allah has stopped protecting as much. And so this is why these things are happening more and more and more. Now, again, with the earthquakes, we're seeing that so many people are dying from these earthquakes, much more than previous times, and are happening much more frequently. Of course, as I said, it's a sign of times of communication that we know in the UK something which is happening maybe in Australia, even before people in Australia know about it because of TV. But it's also a condition of man, that man is moved away from God. And so God is not protecting people. And so because God's not protecting people, so these things are happening. For instance, the tsunami, which happened in Indonesia, Pakistan, and India. Tsunamis could be happening all the time. Allah's protecting us from these tsunamis. But occasionally, Allah will not protect and allow that to have its effects. And of course, when it has its effects, then people die. But alhamdulillah, those righteous people like the Ahmadis, they are normally protected from these. Yes, they may lose their homes, but lives are not so much. And even with this corona, yes, some people are dying who are Ahmadis, but not to the extent of when we look at other people. And so Allah's protection are there for his righteous people, but he's not going to create a bubble. Of course, people died in the world wars and things like that, and people were dying from coronavirus, but on a less extent to the normal population. So it's because Allah's removed his protection. And this is what people need to understand. And this is why Azur is constantly telling us to pray to Allah, develop our own righteousness so that we come into that protection of Allah. So that's for ourselves, and try to encourage other people so that Allah's protection comes. Because if Allah wants, he can easily wipe out this virus. That's not a problem for Allah. Naturally, of course, everything happens. Allah can protect everyone. But these things have to happen for a reason. And the main reason for this, to be allowing it to continue, is for mankind to turn to God. And they're still not doing it. Despite what's been happening, still we're seeing very little response of man turning to the maker. So it's all a question of protection of Allah. This is how these punishments, you can say, happen. They're actually natural disasters, and every punishment is a natural thing. Even like parting of the waves with the Pharaoh is a natural thing that happened. Okay, I hope that's explained it. Anybody else got anything they'd like to say or comments or anything? I thought this would be an interesting topic for you. It would open up quite a few questions, but doesn't seem to be.
There is another question on the chat, which is there any truth about the number of people that planet Earth can sustain?
Well, what do you mean? I mean, obviously, this is one of the reasons why natural disasters happen, to keep down the numbers, if you like. But Allah is Razak, he is the provider, and he will provide for us no matter what. And even now, there's still plenty of space. We're not utilizing it all. Even the food, some countries are destroying food. If they shared that food with countries that are having famines and stuff like that, then that would help those people to get out of that famines. This is the greed of man. So, yeah, of course, as man has progressed, medicine has progressed, we are tending to live much longer now than in the past. And obviously, the result of that is that there will be more population. But Allah naturally allows these things, and that keeps population down somewhat. And I think Allah will always provide. So I'm not sure what they're worried about, but they shouldn't worry. Allah will always provide for you. Okay, anybody else got anything they want to say? I mean, in this particular question, I don't know what is the number that's been mentioned there. But I know that in certain parts of the world, there's plenty of food. Certain parts of the world, there isn't plenty of food. But that's man. It's up to man to share. And one good thing about this coronavirus, there's quite a few good things about this coronavirus, but one good thing, of course, is that it has helped us to look after the planet a bit more, because we're not driving around as much and things like that. So that's cut down the emissions and things like this. So that's saving the planet Earth a little bit, but we still got a lot to do. Okay, anybody else got anything? Ibrahim, you want to say something?
No.
Oh, okay. I saw your mic was unmuted, so I thought you might have something you want to say.
I just came on, so I couldn't. I missed the topic actually.
Oh, okay. Well, it should be recorded, and hopefully, inshallah, you should be able to see it. Oh, watch it a bit later on, inshallah.
Exactly.
Okay. So, anybody else got anything they want to say? We've still got some time if anybody's got anything. As I said, if there's anybody got any particular topic they want to discuss, please let Zaid or Abria or anybody like this know, and we're trying to cover those topics. G, yes, you want to say something?
Yeah, there is a question, another question on the chat. So it's Ramiz, 8 years old, asked, "What does?" Oh, it's gone up. Sorry. Yeah, what does it mean to write in Quran that Allah says to Prophet Moses alayhi salam that your hand will be shining after you take out your armpit?
Armpit.
Armpit.
It's pure white. It's not shining. It's pure a white hand, and white stands for purity. So again, this was some sort of sign. Again, it's something we see quite often, that people skin does change and things like this. But in this particular case, because Moses grew up in the house of Pharaoh, they knew him, and so this was a sign particularly for Pharaoh. Now, whether again it was a vision and it actually wasn't happening, but he saw it to be happening, or whether it really happened, we don't know. But generally, it means purity, and of course, hand is Allah helping him, and so he'll be supported by the hand of God. So otherwise, this as a sign really didn't have much effect on Pharaoh. It's not that that was what he was worrying about. It was more about his rod and how that turned into a snake, and many of the signs which God shown, which destroyed his people. That's what he's more concerned with. Okay, everybody else got any questions? I mean, there's many miracles, of course, and as I said, we don't know how many of these things do happen, because it's against what we understand as the law of nature. Now things are becoming a bit more clearer, but still we've got a long way to go to see how these are happening. So, but as we said, this will be within the law of nature. Now, for instance, the Holy Prophet Muhammad was able to feed many people from a small amount of food or milk coming from his fingertips and things like that. Again, how that happens, we don't know exactly. But this is how Allah is the provider, and Allah knows how these things happen, and so it happens. Of course, it may seem to the people to be a great miracle at that time, and that's what the effect of it is meant to have. It's meant to bring people back to God, just like the coronavirus is meant to bring people back to God in this day and age. Okay, anything else?
Yeah, there is some stuff on chat as well. If you like me to up.
Yeah,
So
please.
so will there be a new Adam? And it carries on saying, will mankind really meet aliens? And then why do that's the same basic question just followed up by someone. Why do we only hear about prophets from the Middle East? Why do we not hear about any other from other countries, other continents? Sorry.
Right. Okay. So let's go to the first one about Adam. Would there be a new Adam? Is that the question?
Yes.
Okay. So according to our understanding, is that with the promised Messiah, salam, he has now established the what we call second manifestation, the Khilafat, and we believe that that Khilafat will go on until man is not worthy of becoming a Khalifa again, which is often happens with mankind. And then we're not sure what's going to happen there, but generally it's felt that Allah's going to bring everything to an end. It's not going to restart with a new Adam, a new message, a new Holy Quran or anything like that. We believe that the Holy Quran is forever and Islam is forever. So as far as we understand, but of course Allah knows best, this is it. So it's now the Khalifas are similar to prophets of old. So Allah is showing his miracles, if you like, through the present day Khalifas. That will stay until, let's say, Ahmadis become rotten, not worthy of having a Khalifa, and then we believe that everything will come to an end. That may be after 1,000 years, 100 years has already gone, but that's what we understand. The second question, what was the second bit?
I'm not sure if you read this one already myself. It's will mankind really meet aliens?
Oh, okay. Again, why? Allah is a creator, and Allah has created space, and it is so vast that even today, with the technology we've got today, we can't see the end of the universe. We know that all these stars, you go outside, you see all these stars, it's similar to our star, the sun. They have planets around them. So, yes, there will be life. Now, whether we will meet them, that's up to Allah, but it's doubtful. The distance from us to the nearest type of possible life is so far, so great that how are we going to do it? And this is what's stuck the scientists and even the filmmakers nowadays. They use things like tunnels or stargates because they're going up in a spaceship. They know that a spaceship can't reach there. So looking at other ways of somehow magically flying across there. Now, if we think about it, if aliens came to this planet, what is going to be their impression? Just like the angel was saying to Allah about mankind, that here is a people who create this order, and it'd be very frightening. You got the ET situation. That would they be friendly to the alien, or would they turn against the alien, and so on and so forth? And more than likely, mankind being mankind, we would turn against the aliens. So why do we need to meet aliens? They have their Qurans and their spiritual path. We have our Quran and spiritual path. What benefit have we got to go to meet other aliens? So, yes, there are aliens. Of course, we won't dismiss that. Allah's Rabbil Alameen, Lord of all the worlds. But whether we will meet them, that seems very unlikely. Okay, what was the third one?
So the third one is, why do we only hear about prophets from the Middle East? Why do we not hear about them from any other continents?
In the Holy Quran, it mentions 24, 25, if you include Hazrat Ahmad, prophets. They were ones that was known to the Arabs at that time. So many of them were Jewish prophets or prophets living around Arabia. Jerusalem, of course, is at the topmost of Arabia, and some Jews, of course, had settled into Arabia, so they knew these. But the Holy Prophet Muhammad has said that there were 124,000 prophets sent to all people. So now the question comes, which prophet came to England? Now, we don't know. But what we do know is that before Christianity, there was paganism, Stonehenge, things like this. They used to worship idols and sun and things like that. We also know, if we look at Arabia, that first Hazrat Ibrahim came there, established the worship of one God. But over time, man, in his weakness, started turning to idols because they felt they could not speak directly to God. And so they started speaking to idols who would intercede to God for them. Then over more time, they started worshipping the idols themselves until finally Allah sent the Holy Prophet Muhammad to re-establish the one God. Coming back to the UK, although we know about the idols and the pagan worship, more than likely a prophet did come before that about the one God. But over time, we have lost records of that. We don't know. And even the paganism, we don't know too much about because Christianity has overtaken this country. And that's mainly the country that we know. But interesting question, because I often say to people who are racist and are saying that Muslims should go back to the Middle East, I say, well, where do you think Christianity come from? Jesus was a Jewish prophet. He's not born in England. It's not a religion of England. It's been a religion adopted by the English people. These days, obviously, the Holy Prophet Muhammad has come for all mankind. So there's no need for others to send a prophet now to any particular country because Islam is for everyone. But as I said, possibly England did have a prophet, and all these countries did have a prophet. We don't know because the records are no longer there. So the only prophets that we know about are the ones mentioned in the Holy Quran. There are more found in the Bible and maybe the Vedas and other things like this. So whatever records there are of those, we know about. But there were 124,000 prophets. We don't know all these people, who they were. So yes, of course, there may be the prophet to England. Okay, any other questions or some very good questions coming, mashallah.
I think that's all from the chat side, Mubsab.
Okay, so anybody else want to ask anything? What's the time? Yes, it's, I think we have to come to an end now anyway.
Yeah.
So if no one else got any question, we'll end it there. Right, okay, so like I say, please, if you've got any topics you want to have discussed, by all means, please let us know and we'll try and look into those. Please join me for silent prayers. Bismillah. I'm sorry, Ameen. Okay, Assalamu alaikum.